All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Deconversion Stories. Today is going to be another one of those days where I talk to somebody who's had quite an interesting path. Sam here has gone from being a Christian to being atheist, back to being a Christian, and then ultimately ending up in something that I guess, Sam, you would say was the most comfortable for you, being a pagan or a polytheist of sorts. Would that be sort of correct in the assumption there? Because let's face it, Abrahamic type belief systems can be quite harmful. And from me also being an ex-pagan as well, I know very well that, there's some woo attached in some of these polytheistic or paganistic belief systems. But
fluffy bunnies.
Yeah, fluffy bunny. But there's not a lot. I don't really recall hearing anybody really being harmed from it. So why don't you kind of take us... Involved. Yeah, well, yeah, okay, sure. But why don't you take us back to the beginning stages when you were first that Christian, and what led you into the atheism thing, and then jumping back into it, and then ultimately into becoming the wonderful pagan person that you are today?
Okay, so I guess a place to start would be the family I was born into. I was born into a family that went to one of a group of Pentecostal churches.
Okay.
Fundamental Christians, young earth creationists, and so on. The only thing they didn't do was snake handling.
Oh, that's probably good.
Yes, they did the whole speaking in tongues and translating thing, though. That was fun.
Always found that to be quite funny.
And so, with that, I presumed everyone on the planet was Christian until I was 9.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out that one of my mates just thought the Bible was stupid. Which
did they point out what they found stupid?
The concept of Adam and Eve.
Okay, sure.
Fair play, but at 9 years old, I hadn't really clicked.
Mm.
Well, I'd sort of clicked. That bit gets complicated. Because the very first domino that fell for me was probably my parents splitting up, because my mum was hyper-religious and my dad wasn't religious.
Right. That must have caused a lot of friction, I imagine.
Probably. But my dad is... Well, I'd put my dad's level of chill on par with you.
Oh, wow. I'm pretty chill.
So my dad avoids most fights with people generally.
Okay.
So I think he kind of gone along with the whole church thing. But then as soon as him and my mum would split up, I could read books on evolution or Harry Potter.
Okay.
My granddad on my mum's side was a bit of a smart ass, and one day while I was around, after I'd been reading a book about Charles Darwin, I made a smart ass remark, as you do at like 7 or 8 years old, and then my granddad went, "Yeah, well, I bet he didn't know what Darwin's theory of evolution was," and he was like, "Well," which impressed my granddad and horrified my nana.
Oh, but Nana was quite religious too, I'm assuming.
Yes, out of our 4 grandparents, the granddad who mentioned Darwin's theory of evolution is the only grandparent who does not run an evangelical fundamentalist Pentecostal church.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. And that was an interesting environment to grow up in, considering I'm non-binary, queer, and I'm neurodivergent as fuck.
Beach Bryce wants to know if you're from Yorkshire.
No, 10 miles from Yorkshire. I'm weird. I live on the board, pretty much on the border of 3 different counties.
Oh, okay. I think she was probably going by the accent, maybe?
Probably. I do have a fair bit of Yorkshire in me.
There you go.
Yeah. Though I'd argue my physical location is probably more Lancashire. But that gets into War of the Roses. With the thing when I say, like, Pentecostals is, like a lot of Pentecostal churches, it was Halloween is evil, Santa is wrong, the Harry Potter books will turn you evil. My mum was quite my mum was quite lenient and stretched it and let me watch Pokemon.
Lets you watch Pokemon.
Well, yeah, it was one of them things that a lot of people in the church wouldn't let their kids watch Pokemon.
Okay. What about things like Yu-Gi-Oh too? Would they let you watch that, or?
Didn't know that existed.
No.
Could you check us my charger? What's this? The one that's plugged in at that. Sorry, my laptop's just dying, and I'd forgotten to bring my charger over here.
Uh-oh. Well, that's okay. You're going to get one in a second, I assume, and plug her in?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice. Could you leave it plugged in?
It's good to have tech support.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, that was interesting. I was... Cheers. Even when I was... kind of moving from Christianity to paganism, Halloween still terrified me.
Really?
Yeah.
What about it terrified you?
The concept that I was going to get possessed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, demon possession is a real thing that happens.
No.
No.
No. Stop trying to trick my viewers, Sam. Come on.
Yes, I'm sure they're totally not smart enough to be tricked by that.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't know. You almost got me.
No, when I moved from Christianity to paganism, as often happens, I had a fluffy bunny phase for about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Which was interesting because I was like, "Ooh, crystals," and that'll wind up What the Craft if they watch this. Which,
yeah.
But yes, that happened for about
for a while.
That happened for about 3 weeks, and then I went, you know what? Crystals are good for focusing attention when casting spells, but that's not really what's going to be a good component for a spell, is it? Crystal healing's bullshit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we've demonstrated that scientifically multiple times. So
yeah, so that kind of went away quite quickly because I was big into my physics and chemistry.
Chemistry, also, right up my alley.
Also to the dismay of a lot of my family members.
What did they say? You were going to be like some mad scientist or something?
Well, they were very impressed at how clever I was, but they were slightly concerned that I could explain evolution to them better than they could explain creationism to me.
That's always a problem, as we see day to day.
And I was, as I guess a lot of pagans and atheists are, I was one of those kids who, in Sunday school, sometimes asked uncomfortable questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wait, but 6 days? Why did God take 6 days over it? Why not do it all immediately? Or why not just explain that it was evolution?
Well, the thing about the creation myth is it involves more than just evolution. I mean, you can talk about the solar system on an evolution type thing, like how planets form and blah, blah, blah. But evolution of itself means through natural selection, the divergence or all the different life that we have. I can't remember the fucking word off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
It explains how that happens. Diversity. That's the word.
Yeah. And kind of in reality, the answer I got back, I got 2 answers. One of them was the Hebrew got mistranslated.
Mm-hmm.
And the other was it's written in the Hebrew style of a poem and therefore not meant to be literal.
Right.
Which I struggled to wrap my head around when I was asking these questions at like 10 years old. So I
wow, at 10.
Yes. 10 was just before my atheist phase. Actually, I did that 11 to 13-ish.
Okay. At 10 years old, I was wondering which Lego set I was going to be buying next.
Fair. So then I kind of, so when I was kind of 11-ish, I met my first Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, that was interesting. He was part of a youth thing I did to with first aid, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so he then presented me with one of those little Jehovah's Witnesses leaflets, but the question on the front of it was the logical problem of evil. How do we solve that as Christians?
Sure.
Which,
it's a hard one for them.
Which threw me right off. Like, oh, what do I do with this? Would have been great, except that this particular guy also, I guess trigger word here, sexually assaulted me repeatedly.
What? Really?
Yes. Apparently, repressed gay guy who, this guy was like 17 at the time. I was like 10, 11.
Wow.
So yeah, not great.
But so he physically like beat you up?
No, sexually assaulted me. Not physically.
Oh, got you. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, fuck.
So yeah, that was, which was fun because my mum had me pulled out of sex ed, so I didn't know what sexual assault was.
Why did your mom have you pulled out of that?
Because it was dangerous and could put satanic thoughts in my head.
Yeah, wouldn't want our kids to be safe and knowledgeable about these kind of things, would we?
I know, right?
Wow, I never understood that kind of thought. I mean,
No.
You may not agree with it, but let them be educated so that they know what they're in for in the future.
So kind of so then I was kind of, I did the whole, I said I was agnostic, which I would apply the term atheist there. So I kind of jumped around from day to day whether I would have been a deist or an atheist.
Mm-hmm. A deist in the form that there's some higher power kind of thing?
It's like, there's something. Do I know what? No.
Sure.
Something. And then I was still going to church because the deal was you want to be part of the family unit, you go to church. Which was interesting because then my mum talked about adopting, and I raised the question, if this kid you adopted was, say, Muslim, what would you do with that? And mum was like, well, I would happily take them to the mosque on whenever they needed to go, drop them off and pick them up.
Really? So she didn't have a problem with people having other beliefs outside of her
own? No, but she wouldn't want them practicing in the house or anything. It would just be dropping them off at the mosque. But weirdly, that was seemed to be the exception to the rule, because she was a bit funny with me, asking questions about Christianity, and I think, how do I explain this without it sounding quite rude to my mum? When I was born, from putting pieces together, from what I remember, she was an anti-vaxxer. Young Earth creationist. I remember her having MLM parties over at the house when it was about to be my bedtime, for all these scented candles that were supposed to have health benefits.
Right.
And I only realized it was an MLM afterwards, because I distinctly remember the end of the party being weird, because the woman then encouraged other people to sell these products too.
Mm-hmm.
And
total MLM, yeah.
So that, and the fact that my mum was also very anti-LGBT, when I found out what bisexuality was by one of my friends coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that gay people existed before this.
Okay.
Would have been nice to know before, but so I found out what bisexuality is. I asked mum, what do you think of it? And mum goes, her choice, but she's going to hell.
Of course. Yeah, that's usually the follow-up.
To a child who happens to be queer.
Right. Yeah, not cool, Mom.
No. And this happened in a couple of other places too, like as an autistic person, one of my special interests is hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned hypnosis to my mum and was like, what do you think of it? And mum was like, all hypnotists are evil and manipulative. It was like, cheers, mum.
Thanks for that, Mom. Yeah.
And And so I did the whole atheist thing for a couple of years, but then at church, I had a spiritual experience, and I had no other way to explain it because it was sort of out of the blue going into church.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't.
What exactly happened? Like, what did you experience?
It was this like this. It wasn't quite disappointment, but it was like discontentment with something, along with a strong go in there and get stuck in sort of feeling.
Like someone telling you or coaxing you to do that.
Well, yeah, but it was really, really intense, and I didn't really have an explanation for that. And so I was like, "Oh," okay. I mentioned it to, I think the pastor's cousin or something, and he was just like, "Oh, yeah, experience with God. He wants you to do a commitment." And so I was like, "Oh, okay, I can be Christian then." But at this point, I've been atheist for a year and 3 months or whatever, something like that. I forget numbers, but so it's kind of like, okay, but I had a lot more liberal ideas in my head at this point.
And that doesn't quite work well with the whole Christianity thing.
No. And it didn't help. It didn't help that at about 13, my maths teacher taught me critical thinking.
Right.
Presenting me with the likes of the Monty Hall problem, and explained to me this is the thing, and here's why it logically works. And it plays against people's biases and stuff like that. It was like, oh, this is dead interesting. So that got me into logic, which I only started applying a couple of years later when I got really into physics, applied maths.
Yep.
And which was great. But kind of as this was going on, as I was becoming Christian again, I think 2 more big dominoes fell that led me towards paganism. First, I started dating an atheist, and didn't try and convert them to Christianity because I thought, hey, they'll convert at some point if they see that Christianity is the right way.
Yeah.
Because this was at the point I was more liberal. So that was a big thing. Oh, atheists aren't scary people. I'm dating one. And the second big domino towards paganism very early on was watching a TED Talk by Richard Dawkins.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one. Yeah.
On militant atheism.
Yep.
Yeah. And it amuses me that Richard Dawkins set me towards paganism.
It does seem kind of odd to hear somebody say something like that, but not surprising, just kind of odd, I guess.
The reason it sent me towards that, though, was that was my first time really understanding why someone would think differently to me.
Okay.
And so I think that broke down a lot of the tribal barriers I'd set up.
Sure.
And at, I think 13, 14, I'd been baptized and all of that. And so when I got to kind of a point where I was like, I'm Christian, but because of my RS teacher who taught me actually how to start debating and how to start thinking about literature, my super Christian RE teacher who also helped me become a pagan, we did a debate in class on can God exist, which is of course an unfairly loaded question. I
pop these up from time to time when I feel they're relevant.
So because I've been taught how to think at this point and how to apply stuff, the question came up: could God exist, or could a God exist? And I was like, okay, so let's start with the actual question itself is asking about any God. So let's start with some God exists and see if we can work towards Christianity. How would we prove that some God could exist? And this was the point.
Or Christian God.
Yeah. And at this point, I started using Google and went, okay, well, what are we defining as a God here? And it was like, okay. I basically went the line, we're calling God some sort of entity, probably conscious, but doesn't have to be, which was a prime mover, caused the universe, still exists, and possibly interacts with humanity.
Which we have really yet to see anything.
Yeah, so that's a thing. And it was one of them, okay, this is a much easier to defend position. And my classmates pretty quickly resorted to, but that can't work, can it? Because living in the UK, actually, a lot of my classmates were atheist, despite us living in a theocracy.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, you guys still have, it's the Church of England, that's still kind of the big front runner for the whole theism thing over there.
Yeah, the Queen is the head of the Church of England.
Right, that's right, yes.
Yeah, that's always fun.
we got her on some of our money over here, so there you go.
Yeah, so all of these were kind of factors, but because because of this debate and thinking about it, I went, actually, I think I might need to throw out sola scriptura as a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, I'm no longer taking the Bible as literal, and I can basically draw what I want from it.
Yeah.
Now, I still thought Moses existed because they teach us that at school.
Yeah, no, he never existed. No. Neither did Abraham.
Nope. Which still shocks my friends when I say I don't think Moses existed.
It shocks them, really.
That's what is taught as standard in high school here in history.
Right, okay. Wait, when you say history, you're talking about like more of a
history lessons,
religious studies, or actual history lessons?
Actual history lessons teach this shit.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And you'll hear teachers claim that we found the remains of the ark.
No. What? No, people, we have not found the remains of the ark.
No.
That would be huge news if we did that.
It absolutely would. And
that's some friends group going, hey, we found the ark. Oh, great, super. What?
No. And then one of my teachers was Jewish, which further reduced my confidence in my pastor. Because it was like, oh, Jewish people are cool. I can eat a bacon sandwich in front of this guy and he's not going to give a shit unless I try and make
bacon and I'm an ex-Jew.
Yeah. I mean, he was like practicing Jew, so he didn't eat bacon. But if we eat it in front of him, so what?
Yeah, no. You know what? Most Jews today, although a lot of them stick to traditional type things like the not eating pork and whatnot. Yeah. My family was never like that. We always had bacon, the odd pork chops here and there. But I never understood that. I thought, and I heard of other, like my sister now is quite kosher, we'll say. And she doesn't really do the whole pizza with the pepperoni and bacon sort of thing, because pepperoni is a lot of times is made from pork products as well. You can get beef pepperoni, but and that's usually what they order, right? But
well, you learn something new every day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, who cares? Eat it. It's fucking food. Yeah. Shut up.
Fair. So I'd kind of come to this point where I was like, I then disagree with my family on a lot of points. Not that I can tell them that, because I despise the idea of sola scriptura now. I think that gay people are fine.
They're people.
I've never heard of trans people at this point. I'm still 15. Never heard of trans people. Dated an atheist. Got in quite some trouble for some things me and said atheist who sat over there. Some activities we got up to got us in quite a lot of trouble.
Oh, really? Can you divulge, or is it going to get you into more trouble?
Well, I being an adult at this point, I don't give a shit if my mum even did see this. But yes, we got in trouble for the likes of making out.
Wait, say that again?
Making out.
Oh. Like
snogging.
Yeah. No, I get it. But that's what got you into trouble.
Well, yeah, because I was 16 and she was 15, and that was sexual activity. I mean, granted, there was more than that, but my mum didn't know about all of it.
Right. So Wow. I mean, if kissing got you into trouble, I can only imagine what kind of trouble you'd be in if it had gone a little bit further.
Oh, you should have seen it 6 months later when my mum decided to randomly look through my phone.
Were you guys like sexting and stuff, or
maybe?
Maybe a little.
Yes, which of course throws out a lot of rules regarding sexuality there. Also, fun little thing there is that both of us then turned out to be gender fluid.
Which is fine. I mean,
yes.
And the fun thing is both of you being gender fluid, you can still be in that relationship.
Yeah, and that, but it made things a lot more interesting when
sure.
The thing was though that my mum had then gotten a divorce and remarried, which a lot of her friends at church gave her a lot of shit for.
Really?
Because it's unbiblical.
So.
And so I think that probably made my mum a bit more accepting, but she never gave me that impression.
Right. How is she with you nowadays?
Well, I came out a few months ago to her.
Good for you, by the way.
Yeah, because I came out to my dad in January, and then I moved to my dad's house at the start of the whole COVID thing. Like, if I'm going to spend months locked inside, I want it to be at my dad's house.
Okay. He's a little bit more fair with you, I guess, than mom?
Yeah. Yeah, and my dad's chill, and we get along great, and he had some summer work lined up for me, which
nice.
COVID ended up getting in the way of, but I'm going to do it now anyway, because I've taken a year out from going to uni to do this.
Okay, gotcha.
Because be software shit.
Is that what you're going to university for? Software engineering?
Sort of. I'm going specifically into cybersecurity.
Wow. Cool. I'll remember to keep you on my friends list. just in case I need some cyber help.
Yeah. And which trying to test things while, like, I swear that part of my thing with, like, Ocean will have mentioned the pagan tech curse of the gremlins. I swear it's a thing though, because some of my mates genuinely don't use their phones around me because they'll fuck up. And when I'm trying to write code, there'll be no errors, there'll be no compiling issues, and then it'll tell me there should have been a compiling error.
That there should have been? Really?
Yes, and that something was fucked up and broke the computer, and I had to restart it.
Mikey Fammon's like, note to self, don't piss off Sam. Sam can shut you down, Mikey.
So it is.
Good morning, Roy. Whoop, nope,
it's certainly bizarre.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I've always kind of been interested in learning a little bit about how all that cybersecurity stuff works. So,
so then I guess because I'm rambling a lot, I guess the last bit of the story would have been me being probably the closest thing you can get to being a Celtic Christian without having heard of Pelagius.
Really? How do you even get to what's the word? Celticism? No,
Celtic Christianity.
Celtic Christianity, which in my mind is an oxymoron anyways. But well, I guess not, because they have the big cross with the Celtic cross. I get all that. So sure, Celtic stuff blended in when the Romans
I basically went when I was kind of 15, 16. Okay, so I think everyone has really fucked up whatever Christianity is supposed to mean. Let's rebuild it from the ground up. I'd recently read some stuff about Kantian philosophy as well, which was fun. Because reading philosophy as a Christian never goes wrong.
You're lying to the people in the audience again. Come on, Sam. We're supposed to be having some honest discourse here.
Yes. God.
Yeah. You know what? I'd say that now. Fuck you and Ocean and the Leakai and everyone. Gods instead of God.
Half my atheist friends do as well. Like, just like when a new one starts to say it, I'm like, you spent enough time around me. Good.
I've influenced your lingo. Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. if they start saying fair enough and gods.
I say that all the time. Fair or fair enough, yeah. I like Freya here. Tech gremlins are weird. I accidentally shut down a cluster at my uni running a simple MPI benchmarking program. Nobody could figure it out.
Oh, I had a big tech gremlin moment the other day. I went to one of my mates' halls of residence at university, and we set off. I say we set off the tech gremlins while I was there for 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, there was a systems glitch that no one could or can explain in the fire alarm system, where we set off well over 100 fire alarms throughout the accommodations.
Fantastic.
And loads of people were leaving their rooms in a panic shock, all running downstairs, and we wandered downstairs like, what's going on? And they said, there has been a technical fault we cannot understand.
So, did you guys ever find out what happened? Or
it was just a system glitch. I asked the people when I was leaving a couple of hours later.
Weird, eh?
And that was the one time they've had it in years as well. Yes, that is in fact a TARDIS.
Yeah, I was drooling over it earlier before we started. So,
scarf.
Yeah, the scarf for was it the Sixth Doctor? Is that the one with Tom Baker? It's Tom Baker, right?
Tom Baker was fourth.
Fourth. That's right, fourth.
Yes.
One of my favorite Doctors. Yeah.
Yes. TARDIS mug.
Which is brilliant. Shannon Q has one of those too, I think.
And, I said to Shannon earlier that she should come on the after show.
Oh, did you? What'd she say?
Well, she said on Twitter. Well, she said on Twitter, what should I do this evening? Because I'm bored. And I said, well, maybe you should come on my after show on Neil's channel. And my words are blanking. Give me a second. It'll come to me. Oh, fun. That was it. Oh, fun.
And that's what she said.
Yeah.
Oh, surprising.
Who knows?
But this is one of my favorite Doctor Who shirts.
That's great.
Daleks Express, when it absolutely positively has to be exterminated.
Where did you get that from, Scaro?
I just Facebook, man. They know how to target market me, so
if they target market you with nerd shit, you're doing something right.
Right, exactly. Oh yeah, well that's because it's usually the algorithms pick up. Google follows you around at what you search for. And I'm, you know what? People go, I hate that. They're watching your. I love it because I don't have to search for shit anymore. They know how to target market me, and I go, that's what I want. Clickety, click, and I've got it. Right.
Try and sell me dice.
Yeah, like I have no problem with that part of it. Because if they're watching what I'm searching for, then all of a sudden all the ads I have pop up are in the vein of the things I was searching for, and it makes it way easier for me. I don't have to go searching for shit.
Which is great until you buy one plane ticket once, and then you get plane tickets for adverts forever.
Yeah, but that kind of fades out once you start. You know what I do when stuff, because I have Expedia, and I had tickets to Faithless Forum that I purchased for plane tickets and whatnot.
I'm going there next year.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be a speaker, so I'll see you there.
Yeah, I've got tickets for all of the evening stuff and shit like that. I mean, I don't know if I'll be allowed in the actual evening bit because that involves alcohol, and I'm 18. So where America is, I'm not allowed to drink for some reason.
Right? Yeah, you got to be 21 in the U.S. But if you see, this is the thing, Sam. See, because if you come and you hang out with us, all the creators and stuff that are going to be doing stuff there, we'll be hanging out at hopefully I think by then maybe we'll be allowed to mingle a little better with the whole COVID shit. Yeah. And we'll be hanging out at like Matt's house, and no one's going to stop you from having a couple of brewskis there, right? No one's going to stop you.
Yeah. I was chatting with V the other day because I ended up calling in to talk Heathen. But then we had a conveniently inconvenient issue where I cut out, but I cut out at a really good time because I had to go help a friend.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then I messaged V like, "Hey, sorry I cut out, but it's for the best." And it was like, "No worries." And we chatted, and it was like, "Well, when you're in Austin, you have to come down to the ACA then."
Yeah.
So I promised I'll go down to the ACA, say hi to people.
Oh, absolutely. That's where we hang out and drink in the back.
Fair. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I went last year. Well, 2018, we'll say. And
last time it was hot.
Ocean was there and everyone was there. And it was just so much fun. Best week I've spent. Well, technically 8 days that I spent down there. So much
I'm planning to go for 1 to 2 weeks, depending.
I'm doing a 2-weeker next time. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's too much fun to not want to be there and hang out with everyone. And I keep telling Drew, who's also known as Genetically Modified Skeptic, that I bought these here, these USB N64 controllers here because
I've not seen one of them in a while.
Yeah, I know. Right? Me either. And I used to have the system, but I gave it to a bunch of kids a while back. And it's like, yeah, I was really, really good at Mario Kart 64. And I was talking a big game at Faithless Forum in 2018, and Drew's like, "Oh, I got the emulator on my computer. You want to have a race?" I'm like, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah." So the guy kicked my ass like fucking 7 out of 8 times. I'm like, "Okay, I'm out of practice clearly, so I need to practice up." And then when I come back down, Drew, your ass is mine.
God, Drew seems really chill.
Oh, he's awesome. Him and I Zoom chat often, light up he'll light up a doobie at his end. I light up one at my end. We blaze together and talk about philosophy and stuff like that. It's cool.
Fair. Yeah. And then when I go to university, I'm probably headed to the London area. So I'll be significantly closer to the likes of Stephen Woodford and Rach Lotes.
Nice. Both are also friends of mine.
Yeah. And we've got very sidetracked. This is good.
That's okay. This happens on the show all the time. Yeah. And I actually like it because it allows us to branch out into other topics as well that we have in common and talk about. Like we have, similar circles of friends. So it's all good.
Yeah. And I would guess you either are or were a D&D player, just from the look of you.
A D&D, yeah. Back in the 80s, I was playing for quite a few years. Yeah.
Yeah. I play tabletop role-playing games generally, but D&D is a few of the ones I play. I play 2nd ed, 3rd ed, and 5th ed.
Nice. I haven't played in years. After D&D, I got into Mech Warrior with the big hexagon cubes and, moving stuff around, which was a lot of fun too. A lot of work involved. You got to keep tabs on your ammo and your armor. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's similar to Warhammer in that manner. It's like
very, very similar. It's almost identical, just 2 different ideas around the same type of gameplay.
I mean, I literally ran the nerd club at high school. Like, they didn't have any teachers running it. I just spoke to the head teacher and said, "Hey, there's not one because the teacher who used to run it left. Am I right to run it?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure. If there's any trouble, grab a teacher." And so I was kind of in charge of nerds, and we did everything from Warhammer to Magic the Gathering and Pokemon to D&D.
Nice. So,
in response to a question from the chat, I've not actually played Pathfinder, funnily enough. The one system I know of that I've not played.
Yeah, I've heard of Pathfinder. I have yet to really delve into it. I don't really do a lot of tabletop games anymore. I don't have a lot of time. I've been, for the past, 10, 12 years, I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! As like one of the card games. I got into a league and stuff like that. So
fair. I have exactly 43 Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. It's a Link deck.
the Link. Oh, when the Links first came out?
Yeah. And I've not modified it at all, but it says something about the skill level of people I'm playing against that I still whoop everyone's asses with it.
Well, Link summoning was really different than what the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community was very used to at the time. I mean, I remember people trying to wrap their head around Exceed summoning when it first came out. Yeah. But and then of course pendulum summoning, which just opened it up for just destruction, right?
Oh yeah. Oh,
you mean I could summon 5 more guys all at once? Like what?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. My trick was always borrowing any deck in high school that anyone wanted me to borrow and still winning.
Yeah. My favorite and always will be is Lightsworn. So I've been a Lightsworn player for many years.
Fair. My playing has literally just been until someone gifted me a deck, borrowing other people's decks and working out how to use them on the fly.
Yeah, that's the best way to learn. Just do it while you're doing it.
Yeah,
right?
I mean that's kind of the way I learned Pokemon as well, was a card game version at least.
I tried a little bit of the Pokemon. I used to play Magic the Gathering.
Oh, Magic's fun. I have some Magic cards older than me.
Yeah, I had 5 copies of Black Lotus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 5 copies. Because I remember my buddy who owned a comic book store, his name was Francis, back in the 80s when Magic first came out. We were I'm like, oh, a card game we can play? Like, wow, this is cool. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll reserve the first 25 boxes of these cards for you guys. So this is like the first edition, first ever run. And they had the Black Lotus cards, which are now worth thousands of dollars. And I had no idea that they were going to be worth that much.
They go like $6,000 a piece.
Yeah. I had 5 of them in there. And I think I sold my set for about 5,000. And that was pretty close to almost 16 to 17,000 cards, I think, in the collection at the time.
Well, that's
it was cheap. I get it.
Yeah. Honestly, looking down at my big box myself, I probably have at least as many, but it's still a lot of cards.
It is, yeah. But you know what? It's moving, because I had comic books too. I had 16 boxes, long boxes.
Oh, I wish I'd not got rid of all of my comic books.
I did. I gave them all to my cousin. I'm like, it's your turn. You can have these. So he's got all my X-Men from issue number 1 up, all my early Todd McFarlane Spider-Mans, the release of Spawn, everything like that from the 80s, 90s, 70s. I mean,
it was a rarity that I was allowed to collect comics because Satanism.
Right.
And it was only after my it was only after my stepdad came into the picture that I was allowed to touch things like Magic the Gathering and D&D. Previously, those would have been devil worship too, but I think my stepdad chilled my mum out of it. And he taught me to play D&D and Magic. I still play D&D with him every other week.
Nice. Very cool.
Even though I've moved out and the whole group is Christian. Granted, he's the only person in the group that knows, but
that's fine. Yeah. But he's when you see a guy who's religious and could possibly think along those lines, but he still goes out of his way to play the game with you. Yeah. You know what, man? That speaks volumes in my head.
Oh,
he
yeah.
wants a relationship of some kind with you.
I mean, when I came out as bi to my mum because explaining my sexuality would take several pages. But when I came out as, I think I said demisexual, but demi-bi, whatever term I used, she kind of just went, nah, and moved on like it hadn't been some big deal that she thought I was going to go to hell now. Now, my stepdad, by contrast, gave me a hug and said, well done.
Awesome. That's cool.
My dad went, oh, cool. Asked me questions for like 4 hours straight. And then once we both knew what we were doing, he was like, okay, cool. It doesn't change anything. Do you want hot dogs?
Do I?
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, that time I went, actually, don't we have some burgers in the freezer? Could we have them?
Oh, yeah. Burgers are good too. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
anything you can throw on the barbecue is fine by me.
Fair. Yeah. So my mum, thing is though, that when I came out to my mum as pagan, I came out to my mum as pagan, trans, and a witch all at once.
Right? The trifecta of
And in this same thing, because I made and sent her an unlisted YouTube video in order to explain it to her. But I also, in that video, reminded her I was queer because I think she thought I was straight, because when I came out as bi, I then started dating a trans guy. So she assumed it was a straight relationship.
Oh, okay. Does she know about trans people at all? Or?
Well, when I asked her what she actually knew about trans people, she said she knew all about it. She had one trans friend 7 years ago who she spoke to like once a month.
Okay.
That apparently qualifies her to have discussions about trans issues with me.
You know what, though? It's a step up from a lot of other fundamentally religious people. I'll give her that much. Yeah. To even have a friend that's trans is a step.
She would be a heretic if the rest of her church knew.
Yep, absolutely. She'd be possibly burned at the stake.
Like, I turned around and said to one of my childhood friends who I met 2 days after I was born, I turned around and said to them about a year ago that I was trans and queer and pagan, and all they could do is just stutter, but the Bible.
Yeah, but my Bible. Yeah, so you hear that a lot.
Yeah, and the other day I was talking to one of my other primary school friends who is a young earth creationist, and I spent 3 hours trying to explain to them that I don't think they're going to pagan hell.
Which one? Because there's like hundreds of them.
And then I had to sit them down and explain to them that no, the Norse idea, for example, I'm not a Norse pagan, but the Norse idea of hell is literally just a garden where you sit around chilling with people for however long. It's not scary. I'm going there, you're going there, she's going there. In the Norse concept, words.
I kind of like the hell that Homer Simpson had to go to.
That was interesting.
Where he's being fed with donuts, and he's like, more, no. They're like, this isn't working.
Yeah. So, I was. I was a very heretical Christian. So no, I'm going to try my best, but I'm going to butcher that. Is it Freya?
Freya, yeah.
Yes, that's what I was referring to. The hell being the standard afterlife. So
there are concepts of an afterlife that you don't want. You'd much rather, like, let's say the Norse. You don't want to go to their version of a hell. You want to be in Valhalla. Although being in Valhalla is
that's a funny thing, because I was speaking to
you're forced to fight.
I was speaking to a heathen I know barefoot who was saying that even if you do go to Valhalla, that's just your land spirit, and it's only because otherwise there'd be a bunch of ghosts hanging around battlefields because they weren't buried in family graves. You don't want to be in Valhalla because you just die over and over again for eternity.
Yep. But you get to party every time, though.
Yeah. Now, if you go, I think it was, I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, but it was something like, if you go to Valhalla, you get respect for it in hell or something. But basically, Valhalla isn't something to be attained, like a lot of people will argue. So it's kind of weird. And then people will look at the like Hellenic concept, for example, of the fields of asphodel, and go, "Oh no, that's bad," and and that frustrates me, because pretty much everyone on the planet, unless they're super noticeable, is going to the fields of asphodel in that idea, which I guess is technically the idea for my tradition. But I'm kind of agnostic on the concept of an afterlife in the first place. Sure. It's like, would it be nice to think so? Yes. And if I get there and there is, I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yep. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I really don't see any evidence for any form of an afterlife, but at least nothing's been pointed out in an empirical style. But the thought of it is great. I mean, if we could keep going after this, unfortunately, I've come to the conclusion that we just don't. So I try to encourage people to make the best of the one life that we do know we have.
Yeah, and that's,
if there's an afterlife, like you said, bonus points.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's some like reincarnation that's just New Game Plus, works for me.
Sure.
And I don't think it has to matter as much as Christians try and make it out.
I like Beaches here. I don't want to go to Valhalla. I'd be a serving wench to sweaty, hairy, grunting men. Men like me, sweaty, hairy, grunting. More mead. I haven't had good mead in a long time.
See, I still need to try mead.
It's delicious.
Fair. I like a good whiskey, and I'm told that mead is like basically like a sweeter type of thing, but similar.
Well, it's a honey beer, basically, is what mead is, or honey
Yeah.
wine, depending on how you make it. There's multiple ways to make mead if you want.
Fair. Yeah, I'm very much a whiskey insider person, which gets me funny looks around here because everyone drinks beer to get pissed.
Oh no. I like good. I like a good single malt Scotch.
Single malt. My dad got me a single malt Scotch for my 18th.
Nice.
So I've tried that out on special occasions.
Oh yeah, it's good stuff. It's a good sipper. You just you get your little Scotch glass, throw a finger in there, shot of water just to open it up, and just fucking sip that baby. Maybe I don't know if you're a smoker at all, but a really good cigar goes really good with some single malt Scotch.
I'm a social smoker.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, I've probably smoked like 12 cigarettes in my life, but that's because I'm not often around smokers.
Fair enough. Yeah, probably best not to smoke. I can tell you that.
Yes.
But
yes, I mean, generally, if I do smoke, it probably contains some sort of substance that I'm not going to mention because I mean
marijuana.
No,
it's okay. We're in Canada.
I stick to weed personally.
Yeah, I'm a weed lover.
Partially because a lot of other drugs locally have weird shit mixed in with them.
Yeah.
And partially because weed does what I want it to. Nah.
Well, Sam, I can honestly say when we meet up at the Faithless Forum when it happens, we're definitely going to roll one and smoke one together.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Excellent. We're getting pretty close to the hour. Is there anything that you wanted to mention before we go to the after party?
Yeah, we got slightly distracted. There's a whole leg that we missed of me going from Christian to pagan.
Carry on. I'm willing to go past the hour. It's okay.
So, this one's, I guess, simpler. I already had this sort of idea of spiritual experiences and being treating it very much as internal intuitions for Christianity are probably more in line with what God wants because we were created in God's image, sort of thing. Which is, frankly, I just accidentally reinvented Pelagius. And so when I found out that one of my friends was pagan, it was just like, oh, okay, this is new. How does this work? And so I asked them questions about it because I was a nosy fuck. I still am a nosy fuck. And when it was kind of explained to me, it was like, oh, okay. And then I thought about it and went, wait, but if other people have spiritual experiences too, how do I square that with Christianity? And I tried all sorts of ways to fit it. And I went through all sorts of kind of dynamic shifts in how I was thinking about it. Okay. I went henotheist for a bit. All of the other gods are just angels serving God. I did monolatrist, where there was a whole big I thought there might have been a whole big misunderstanding where it was like, worship Yahweh before the others, but worshiping the others is okay.
Right.
Which was interesting. And then I did a bit of research and went, wait, is Yahweh literally just El?
Well, initially, that's why we have words like Israel, which means God.
Yeah, and
it names Daniel, Azrael. Yeah,
and as it's later on, but things like Raziel. Because oh shit, which book was that? I'm trying to think now. It's one of the non-canonical books. It contained a lot of shit about angels.
Yeah. Oh shit! I know what you mean now, and it's not coming to me either. Great, yes. Two of us can't remember.
Yeah, I could probably Google it, but yeah, that was part of me getting rid of Sola Scriptura. Going, wait, there are more texts.
Oh yeah. That's what the Council of Nicaea was all about, figuring out which ones would be canonical and which ones wouldn't be.
Yeah, we weren't taught about that, though, because at Church of England, we were taught Catholics bad.
Oh, right, of course.
Yeah. And my conclusion was kind of then, as I was going through this, it was like, well, actually, since they didn't have concepts of Yahweh, how could they be expected to worship Yahweh above the others? So maybe it was, and I was a perennialist for a bit. That was fun.
What's involved in that?
So a perennialist is the concept that
you say perennial, and I think flowers.
So, the best way I can explain it was basically the concept that all of the gods were just aspects of one true God.
Oh yeah, okay, sure, right.
And that I was, because bias, of the opinion that Yahweh was the closest to the true concept of God.
Okay.
And therefore was kind of the most important one, but the others did exist, and they were effectively less pure versions of the same concepts.
Okay.
And this was, at that point, I would have called myself Christo-pagan, I guess. But
sure.
I wasn't really, I was perennialist. And then I was kind of like, I literally just shifted to be like, okay, so no, I'm going to put Yahweh on equal footing with the other pagan gods. And he's part of my, I'm going to use a term here that I should be careful using around potentially a bunch of atheists. It was hearth cult. No, the reason I say hearth cult, of course, the word cult is going to throw you a red flag if you're just thinking about it in the effectively modern sense of the term. But cult could also mean a group of people worshipping a deity, or the pantheon of deities, a personal set of people worshipped.
Sure.
So your hearth cult is within a lot of pagan religions, the gods you worship effectively.
Sure.
So my hearth cult is primarily the Morrigan, Hermes, and Hephaestus.
So spawning from the Greek.
Yeah, primarily Greek. I'm primarily a Hellenist.
Like Eliakai.
Yeah, still new to Reconstruction, and I've got a bit of Celtic thrown in there because local stuff. I'm also an animist, which is fun.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. I think one big thing though that I then had this shift where I was like, okay, so I got into witchcraft while I was actual Christo-pagan, not pretending to be Christo-pagan. And so while I was doing that, I then kind of slowly and gradually, I just kind of looked at all of the texts I could find about kind of Christian and Jewish concepts of God, and I was like, why am I engaging in prayer for this deity? Just slowly over a couple of months, it was more and more. What's this? And so it was like it just slowly dropped off, and then I was like, nope, you know what? No.
There you go. One from my friend Rory. Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. There you go. Yeah, of course. I forgot to start it with that. Anyway, yeah. Okay, Rory, shut up.
Yeah, so that was kind of a whole thing that I just kind of gradually dropped it off, but I didn't really mention to people, except the guys at college. And a bunch of the atheists at college were quizzing me, trying to work out what I believed and why and deconstruct it. One of them tried to SE me without asking consent first. That was fun.
That's weird, because usually people that do practice SE will go, do you mind if I ask you some questions about your beliefs? Like, they usually say that right off the hop.
Yeah, which is that's fine. That's what's supposed to happen. But I personally have issues with SE because out of the 10 people who've tried to do it to me, 8 haven't asked consent first. And ignoring the fact that there's some psychologically abusive tactics in there.
Yeah, there can be. I mean, it depends on. I find SE can be useful in some ways, but I've seen some. I don't want to say vitriolic, but I mean, you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, I would find it significantly more useful to literally just go with a bit of a more one-sided Socratic method thing, where you just
Socratic method. Yeah,
I think Socratic method is best. One-sided Socratic method works for trying to deconvert someone from a cult or some shit. But I think it gets less useful as you go on, especially if people try and apply it to pagans, because especially if it's reconstructionists and stuff, kind of like this is just kind of there. And
I've always been one to sort of like say, well, what do you believe and why do you believe it and why do you find it convincing? Those kind of questions are the kinds that I ask.
Yeah, and those are, fair questions. It's just that's not what I'm kind of used to with SE, which is the SE I'm used to bothers me basically.
Well, there's good ones and there's bad ones, of course.
Yeah, like I've seen Drew do it before. I think it was with he was doing a collaboration with Telltale or something, and I saw his essay and I was like, that's far less problematic than the forms I've come across.
Yep. Well, both Drew and Owen are they're not like in your face kind of guys. They're chill, they're relaxed, and they'll go about it in a very diplomatic sense, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So that was kind of fine. It didn't help trying to SE me while I'd still only half worked out how beliefs worked.
Right. Well, yeah, because that's not the time you want to approach somebody like that.
No.
Let them figure their shit out first. Then
I think they were trying to avoid me joining a coven or some shit, but I knew only a couple of other pagans, so that wasn't a problem.
Sure.
And so, basically that kind of there was a really gradual shift, and it was funny because it was all gradual shifts. Like I gradually became agnostic. I went, well, maybe Christianity's true, but I can't explain this, or then the ineffable plan idea, and then wait, but that leaves God being logically incoherent. That's not great.
Yeah. And
then I kind of slowly phased back into it with, oh, okay, I've had a religious experience. How do I deal with this? And once I worked out what to do with it, did that, and kind of, it was all weird and slow shifting. I can't pinpoint exact places, except I think where I'd go, say I went from Christo-pagan, so Christian and pagan, to pagan itself, was the day I went, fuck it, I'm not interested in working with Yahweh.
Right.
And that's about the only definitive line I can draw. And then I've gone through various levels of revisionism and reconstruction, and it'd be significantly easier if I wasn't ADHD as fuck.
Yeah, that probably throws a wrench in there.
Yeah, because having executive dysfunction while trying to work out how an orthopraxic faith works, orthopraxic being like where it's more important the actions you take than the beliefs you hold. And I've kind of recently settled on, because someone asked me a question ages ago that I wasn't certain about. What would it matter if you found out tomorrow that the gods don't exist? And honestly, I think for me the answer is basically it doesn't.
The answer is basically what?
It doesn't.
Doesn't bother you?
Like, if you can prove to me the gods don't exist, you've made me an atheo-pagan.
Okay. Still sticking to the traditional pagan stuff, but just without the whole
because it all works for me, and I find it really rejuvenating and comfortable. And people need rituals, and this set we
have them all the time.
Yeah, this set I've found works especially well for me. So I'm not going to throw the rituals out just because I've lost the belief in.
They just might alter it slightly. That's all.
Yeah, so maybe I'd alter a couple of my rituals to be more convenient for me, but that would be it.
Right.
And even then, if you can prove there's no gods, then my experiences with what I perceive as the gods are still real, and so having those experiences that kind of help me relax and think about things is still useful to have.
Yep, sure.
So it's one of them that, and the other thing is, I could see people taking issue if I held issue with science, but I've spent the last 7 years studying science. I'm good with science.
Well, science is the best method we have.
Yeah.
Discovering the universe and world around us and all of its traits and laws and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I will absolutely tell someone when I think they're trying to use science as an epistemology. You can't prove it, therefore it doesn't exist.
Right.
It's like, no, that's not how we do this. Yeah.
Well, science doesn't actually. The funny thing is, math is used for proof. Science
isn't
set out to prove things. It sets out to demonstrate the best reason for what we see or observe or whatever. That's what science does.
Yeah. And I find a lot of atheists are really chill with pagans, which would have horrified me. Yeah, which would have horrified me as a Christian. But it's like, but why are you fine with their gods but not my one?
Well, for me, it's an easy answer because I used to be a part of that belief system. I was once, I was more into the Celtic and Norse type deities myself. I identified with them as mostly. And I still have friends that do that sort of thing. So, and I still go out and I do little ritually things with them or whatever. Yeah. And basically it's just, they do their little altar shtick and then we smoke a doobie and watch something cool like Clash of the Titans or some classic.
Oh yeah, that's fairly standard for like an in-person ritual.
Yeah. Right. So, we do stuff like that. And they're not out there trying to convert people. They're not out there trying to take away the rights of marginalized people. They're not out there trying to do harm to people. Right?
Yeah.
They're out there like, chill, guys, it's okay.
Yeah. And now some atheists, a lot of atheists who haven't heard about paganism at all will jump down a pagan's throat. And like, I'm starting a YouTube channel, and as such, a decent chunk of that is basically going to be me going, well, look, atheists who don't understand this yet, here is a thing that will be useful for trying to talk to pagans, because I want to have a conversation with you. But when I tell you that I believe in many gods, you're either saying that I'm lying, or you're telling me that I'm insane for believing in multiple omnipotent beings, which I don't hold that any of the gods are omnipotent.
I think omnipotence in and of itself is
self-contradictory.
Yeah, and it's not a possibility thing.
So yeah, it was one of them. It's one of them that if I forget how much a dime actually is, but if I had a dime for every time I'd heard it, I imagine I'd have several dollars. And I've only come out recently.
Right.
So it's like, if we're going to continue this way, I'll make videos explaining the shit I get asked repeatedly, and then just point people at them.
There you go.
So yeah, I think that's about it, unless you wanted to poke me about any specific bits of it.
No, it's your story to tell. So I have jumped in with a comment or question through the whole thing, right? So
yeah, I think that's about it for things I was wanting to mention.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing I'd really mention is that I've been heavily influenced by the atheist community, because one of the things that put me off Sola Scriptura was watching, when I was a lot younger and didn't understand necessarily, Rachel Oates' video on Debbie Pearl and her awful book about child abuse. And it was kind of like, well, if that's taking the Bible literally, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And then I found some of Jimmy Snow's content about queer people and stuff. And that sent me down a rabbit hole. And I found Cirrus, and I found Prophet of Zod and Genetically Modified Skeptic. And then I eventually stumbled across Ocean, and I was like, oh, shit, this is it.
Yeah, Ocean's awesome.
Yeah,
one of my favorite.
And now there's an awful lot of us. There's me, hopefully starting next week, but I made a 23 minute video on free will as my first video. So I'm gonna try and cut that into 2 parts if I can, because that's quite long.
Very cool. The whole free will thing is an interesting topic.
Yeah. I mean, my conclusion is basically, I don't mind what answer you give, so long as you agree with me that people actually should be held responsible for shit.
True enough.
Like, as long as our results are the same, the way we get there is less important, I guess. But
yeah.
So yeah, it's just one of them things that then we've also got Aaliyah Kai, and then people like Wolf and
Wolf the Red.
Yeah, and Celery has shown up, and all sorts of people. So there's loads now.
Yep. Yeah, and I've had Ocean, I've had Aleakai, I've had Wolf all on my show. I've had other pagans on as well, and polytheists.
Yeah, Callan.
Callan's been on, yeah. Callan's amazing.
Callan's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I need something about sociology, I'd just be like, hey, Callan.
Can I poke you for a couple of years here? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's okay. I have issues with some comments, but that's okay. We can do that another time. What do you say we pick this up in an after party? Are you still good to hang out for a little bit? Because I know it's getting late at your end. So
I'm not going to sleep for a while.
Okay. Well, excellent. Okay. Well, we'll hang out in an after party for hour and a half or so. So if anyone would like to join Sam and myself, please let me know through the Twitter messaging system, or Twitter. Yes, if you want to use the proper English. Yeah. Twitter, exactly. You can get a hold of me through that and let me know. Or if you're on Facebook and you're not on Twitter, I'm also on Facebook as Neil Bernstein. You can't miss it. Bright neon green profile picture with a spinning logo in it. You can't miss it. Let me know there, and I will give you a link, and you can join Sam and myself for a little while. We'll carry on some fun conversations. Should be a lot of fun. Hang on. All right, Neil, you can get started now. I'm here. Yeah, the idiot just shows up. Yeah, well, except that we're done. But you're welcome to come and hang out for the after party, which will be getting going. I'm going to take about a 10-minute break. I got to pee really bad again. And because don't forget, before I did this, as I was telling you earlier, Sam, I was doing the Atheist Drinking Out Loud show. So I've already put away a couple at that point, or a few, I think, at that point. So, and it went a little longer than usually it did. So, which is kind of, and I completely forgot that we had scheduled for 4. So I feel kind of like a shithead for that. But
that's right. It happens all the time.
I'm old and forgetful. It happens. So we ended up getting a little bit half hour later than we were going to, but it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I sleep.
Well, there you go. So we're all good. We're doing good.
Yeah, I mean, I can probably get away with staying up to like 5-6 in the morning.
I remember those days, but you see, now I start work at 5-6 in the morning. So
see, I have the advantage of literally being able to pick what hours I work, so long as I work 30 hours in a week.
No, you're good. Excellent.
Yeah, software.
Nice, beautiful, awesome. So,
all right.
Sam, thank you for joining me today. It's been an absolute blast.
Excellent.
Yeah. And thank you, everyone, for hanging out in the chat. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. We kind of went a little all over the place, but that happens from time to time on the show. So I think it should be fully expected. But like I always say at the end of these shows, guys, first of all, thanks to all my amazing patrons. There's a couple of them are in the chat right now. I won't mention any names. Derek Cruz. Sorry. But anyway, thank you guys for being amazing patrons as you are. And also with the whole COVID thing going on right now, remember, guys, to be safe and be well. And above all, be kind. And like the late, great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge.